Well, hello there, ladies and gents. Great to be back with you here on Advance Your Wealth. I'm Brian Ruff, your moderator, but as always, I'll be joined by really our star of the show. That's Homer Smith, our private wealth advisor. He'll be joining us for another deep dive into, of course, a wealth management related conversation. Today, we're circling back towards that business owner that we spend so much time talking about, and specifically, for many entrepreneurs out there, do you really know what your business is worth? That's a huge question that many entrepreneurs and business owners are thinking about to themselves, if you will. And it turns out you might be surprised to discover that the value of what it might actually be, that true value, is very different from the number maybe you had in your head. So today, Homer and I are going to sit down and we're going to examine this conversation that a business owner has maybe with their trusted advisors or with themselves even, and dive into maybe some steps that you can be taking to get a proper valuation done on your business. So that way you can be armed with that knowledge and that insight should you be looking towards what comes next, perhaps selling or passing the business down, whatever that decision might be when the time comes. But before we get into the nitty gritty of it all, let's go ahead and say hi to Homer. Homer, good to see you today. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, Ryan. Good to see you as always.
Yeah, great to be with you. Homer, you and I chat about this a lot. This moment in a business owner's life where knowing the true value of their business can be, just massively, influential in their decision making on how they go forward. Why don't we start off kind of from a high level today? Homer, this idea of valuing a business is something that I know you've said to me that business owners aren't really doing enough of in today's day and age. Why is that?
That's right. If you ask a business owner if they know, like really know what their business is worth, there's a good chance that they're gonna at best be guessing. Most entrepreneurs are busy running and building and creating their business. So really understanding all of the key issues that go into making up their valuation is a challenge, right? And so even if it's something they think they have a good idea, maybe they're in a certain industry where there's pretty set kind of numbers around a value. I think it's still important, depending on what they're going through, that getting an actual valuation done might matter. And I think especially as more business owners and a lot of the clients we're working with are going down the road of thinking about selling or transitioning out of their business. And there's a lot of cash on the sidelines, looking to invest in private businesses. But there's also a lot of challenges to getting a transaction done. And I know we've talked about these stats before, but I think it's really important that business owners understand this, and that business owners who actually raise their hand and say, I'm actually ready, I want to sell my business, and actually try to go to market, only about 1 in 5 are able to complete a transaction. And then what gets worse is those that actually are able to complete the transaction, so that 1 in 5 that made it, only 12% of them, when surveyed, once the sale was completed, only 12% said they were highly satisfied with the outcome. So you put that math together, it's only like 2 to 3% of business owners who say, I'm ready to sell my business, that end the process with a very highly satisfactory outcome. So to me, that's not very good. And what we know is, or what we believe is, the two primary reasons why they end up in that scenario is, first, a lack of pre-sale personal planning. So they didn't really do the work to understand, okay, if I sell this thing, what do I actually need to sell it for to be able to live the lifestyle I want to live after this is done? Did I mitigate the taxes as well as I possibly could to make sure in my pocket I got the most that I could? But really, when it relates to the business valuation, a lot of that comes from a lack of pre-sale corporate planning. So they didn't do the work to make sure their financials were, in as good a shape as they could have been, and many other factors that could have impacted that ultimate value. And so again, yes, I do think there's a challenge with not enough business owners really understanding their value, and really, to me, understanding the reason for doing this valuation as early in the process as possible, even if you're not planning to sell right away.
Sure. And I want to double click into the timing consideration here now, because you've brought up a lot of really good points. And that is a staggering statistic about how, few are ultimately satisfied. I mean, wild to think about. But Homer, why would you say entrepreneurs should really be more aware of their business's worth over the course of time, not just when they're getting ready to sell their business?
Yeah, good question. So I think one kind of big picture focus that we have as a business and helping our clients think about things is this idea of we're not trying to predict the future, but we want to be prepared for whatever might come. And so what I think is important is that business owners are aware of what their business is worth. And there's a number of reasons. First, the Godfather offer might come along unexpectedly where someone is willing to pay you whatever it needs to be for you to say yes to that transaction. If you're not prepared, if you don't know what the real value of your business is, you won't know whether that Godfather offer is what's in front of you or not. But there's also a lot of other reasons that you might want to have some level of evaluation done. It could be for gifting purposes. It could be for equity compensation. It could be for unfortunate issues like going through a divorce. So regularly getting a valuation, whether it's formal or informal, done on your business, I think is going to just have you in a much better position to be prepared for whatever is coming up in your life.
Certainly. Well, Homer, let's also jump into the whole idea of business owners themselves. Are they often surprised by the result of a true valuation when they, let's say, maybe they haven't ever had a valuation go through for their company, or maybe they just haven't had one done in a while? Do you find that most entrepreneurs are a little shocked by whatever the results end up being?
Yeah, 100%. So what we typically see when a formal evaluation is done is that the results are often unexpected and unfortunately not in a positive way. I would say it's extremely common for evaluations to come in lower than they anticipated. And so entrepreneurs are kind of overestimating what their value is worth. And what I find in the business owners that we work with is the things they value quite a bit, especially sweat equity, the time and energy. Most of these business owners are working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week to get this business built. And maybe they're not past that level of energy, but they had to go through it to get there. Maybe this business is a third, fourth, fifth generation business that they've been dealing with. And so they are focused more on seeing these things as positives, right? And all of the time, energy, effort they put in. What they're not typically looking for are where are the risks in my business, and what is a buyer going to be looking at. So when we work with our business owner clients, what we really try to get them to think about is, have you been looking and viewing your business from the eye of a buyer and really looking for the things that are going to be seen as potential risks to a potential buyer? Like how am I going to lose my money if I'm buying your business? That's the first thing I'm looking at. And what I find is just most sellers don't focus on those things. They're much more focused on more of the emotional components related to their business. So getting a valuation done, I think, often can help with an independent third party giving them that feedback, and starting to help them think and see that, hey, this your little baby that you've focused on building for so many years, it might have some issues. And it's better to hear it well in advance of maybe going to market and selling it than finding out that it's worth much less than you thought it was when you need it at the end when you're ready to sell it.
Yeah, I mean that's the one item that I think any business owner wants to avoid. So the question that begs to be asked now is, okay, where to begin? Where should a business owner start to really develop that clear picture of what their business is worth so that they have their ducks in a row, so to speak, when that time comes, it's time to hit the negotiation table.
Yeah, so rather than get into like some of the specifics of the different methodologies for valuing a business, some of the technical pieces of it, the way I more think about it is what type of valuation do you need at different stages of your business? And so there's a very specific type of valuation you need if you're going to be doing like estate planning and gifting, or a very specific type of valuation for equity compensation. So we're not going to speak really to those. So more what I think about is what is the goal of the business owner from maybe a potential sale or value improvement standpoint. So what I say is if you're not looking to sell your business in the next 6 months to a year, um, maybe an informal valuation might be the best way to go. And we often work with whether it's investment bankers or business brokers who are in that industry and know it extremely well. They can come in and look at your business and very, I would say, again, informally, back of the napkin, help you understand where you fit versus other companies in your industry, and particularly other companies that have recently sold. What were they doing well? How did their numbers compare to your numbers? And they can give I would say, a relatively reasonable view of what that business is worth compared to other recent sales. So I kind of look at it as like when you're going to market with your home and you ask an agent for a valuation, they're going to go and look at comparable sales. That's effectively what they're doing in that kind of evaluation. So it's not something that would be defended in court, but it's something that could at least give you a good sense of the direction, and I'd say within a reasonable range of what the business is worth. Now, if you're actually really getting close to a sale and you want to validate what this business is worth, maybe for negotiation purposes, and you really want to know, and you've done the work to like kind of try to maximize and optimize the value, then going through a more formal process where they're going to give you a number of different views of the value from all of those different methodologies, whether it's a market approach, whether it's a discounted cash flow approach, an asset value, again, depending on the type of business you're in. So if you're a very asset heavy business, equipment heavy business, there might be more value in the assets you're selling than in the goodwill of the business. And so it does matter when you're getting into a more formal process to go through that process to really understand what you're worth.
Of course. And Homer, you mentioned something really important that, when somebody goes through this valuation process, yes, they have a third party analyze and maybe uncover some issues that make your baby not as great as you may have thought. So, what are some of those key issues that you find business owners realizing that is a part or a problem even of their business or its worth when they go through the valuation process?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there depending on the business, there can be many and some that matter in one industry versus another. But what I would say from a high level, the ones that we often find have the biggest impact on value. I'll start with kind of four today. So the first one is owner dependence. And so if the business you're in and that you're running and owning, if the revenue stream is highly or exclusively dependent on the owner, it's going to have a massive impact on the value of that business. So, the buyer coming in, if they're going to be 100% reliant on that owner sticking around for a number of years to be able to keep those customers in place, that's less valuable than knowing that there are systems and structure already in place in that business to have a consistent stream of high quality customers and clients coming in and the ability to retain them without the owner's involvement. So the challenge with that often is ego, and an owner who, really feels they're so important to the business and they have to be the one running these really critical components of the business. If that's the case, though, the business is going to be worth much less. So I think that's an important factor. Another one we see all the time is even very large businesses that are driving 100 million, 200, 300 million in revenue, their financials are a mess. And so when we ask them to produce the key reports for the business, the balance sheet, the income statement, the cash flow statement, it can be a challenge for even these very successful large businesses to produce these really critical reports on a consistent and quick basis. And then even just producing them can be a challenge. Then the next step of actually being able to use those reports and identify issues in the business financially and make strategic decisions to improve or change um, those can be detriments if they're not doing that. If they can't identify the reports quickly, put them together, and then use them, that's going to reduce the value of a business. Another big one is management team. So one of the big buyers of private businesses right now are private equity groups. And private equity groups are what we call financial buyers. So they're looking to invest money in the business, leverage the business up to get a significant growth in that business to then ultimately repackage it and resell it 5, 7, 10 years later for a much higher multiple. So what they're relying on is they can infuse that capital, that investment into the business, and the current management team can take that investment, run with it, and grow and deliver on those really high growth rates. So if they have a concern that the current management team can deliver, if they have to go in and go source and find new management team members to come in, they're either going to devalue the business and want a discount, or they're going to walk away from the opportunity altogether. And then final one is customer concentration. And sometimes this is pretty related to, the owner dependency issue we mentioned earlier. But if one or two customers are 50, 60, 70, 80% of the revenue, to an existing owner, that might look like a positive. Like, hey, we've got these really strong ties. We've been working with this customer or this supplier for 20 years. They're not going anywhere. That might be positive if you're an owner, an existing owner. But if you're a buyer, there's a massive amount of risk in that situation, because if for whatever reason, when they came in and bought the business, those one or two customers or those one or two suppliers decided to go in a different direction, that could have a massive impact on the future revenue stream and profits of that business. So I mentioned there's more, but I'd say those four are the ones that we see most often as a business going to get their valuation done or even going to market, where they have a lot of the biggest issues in getting the maximum value out of the company.
Sure. No, Homer, this is great and a lot of considerations for, our business owner audience out there. But Homer, in throwing a lot of this at our audience, I'm sure there's some scratching of heads or there's some, oof, man, I do really need to go through this process that's happening with a lot of our audience out there. But Homer, what would be some of the steps then that you would suggest a business owner begin to take to consider evaluation and go through that process?
Yeah, what I would definitely say right now is because of the nature of a lot of how businesses are owned today, there's a lot of private businesses owned by baby boomers, and baby boomers are getting to the age where they're now in much larger numbers looking to sell their businesses. So there's going to be a lot of supply of potential businesses out there. So what's going to be really important is that your business is actually performing exceedingly well. And so my first suggestion would be, as early in the process as possibly before you're planning to sell, is to get an informal valuation done at the very least, to start to identify what are the issues that you're facing that are potentially impacting the value, and what you actually need that value to get to live the lifestyle you want. We work with a number of specialists, whether it's operators, financial people, salespeople, that their whole world is coming into companies 2, 3, 4 years in advance of a sale and doing things to enhance the value and maybe creating millions of potential dollars in value growth. But you need to be able to do that far in enough advance to be able to identify that and bring those people in. And so kind of the analogy we use is, this might be a little bit graphic for people, but it's really what we're all about is how do we help you fatten up the pig for market versus just trying to at last minute, slap some lipstick on the pig and hope it works to get the process and get the business sold. My experience is if you take the time 2, 3 years in advance and you implement things to enhance the value, improve the operations, clean up your financials, you're much more likely to get into that one of 5 businesses that actually completes the transaction versus, again, just trying to put that lipstick on the pig at the very end.
Sure, sure. So, Homer, any parting words maybe of wisdom for our audience that's out there considering the going through the process of getting their business formally evaluated and maybe even approaching that ultimate decision of making a sale?
Yeah, I think it's so important for business owners, entrepreneurs to, not just be working in the business. Again, especially as you're building it, you're definitely going to be more involved in the day-to-day, week-to-week responsibilities. But being able to take some time, sit back and work on the business and be thinking big picture and identifying where are the areas that need the most improvement or where you need the most help. What's the right team to build around you to help you optimize, again, not only the revenue, not only the profitability, but ultimately the valuation. How do I along the way mitigate taxes? How do I think about other things like estate taxes? So there's a lot of issues that come when you're building value in a business. And so again, I think taking a team approach and identifying who are the right professionals that I should be surrounding myself as early as possible in the process that are going to help me optimize what I'm doing for my entire financial picture.
Yeah, absolutely. And Homer, these kinds of conversations, they're commonplace for you and your team. You're going through and helping business owners navigate some of these, I would imagine, uncharted waters for many people. So for any of our audience members out there that could benefit from having a conversation with you and your team to talk through this process and how they can, fatten up that pig and get their business ready to go for when the time comes, what would be the best way somebody could reach out and talk to you guys?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Ryan, what we're really known for, more than anything else, is working with successful families and business owners to confidently navigate life's most complex transitions. And a lot of it is around the value of their business. So whether it's, starting to think about moving from owner operator to owner and taking a step out of the day-to-day operations and what that might mean to, getting ready to transition this business. And maybe it's been in the family for multiple generations and now it's time to transition to the next generation, or maybe it's to the management team. Or it might be to a point where they feel the best value is selling it externally. And how do I optimize the value in an external sale? And then, once they do that and they now have this liquidity, how do we really start to think about living off of our wealth that we, created from this liquidity event versus from the business? And then ultimately, how do we transition this wealth to our family in a way that's positive and impactful, and not destructive, which unfortunately we see way too many times. So at the end of the day, it's really, helping our families move from this place of success to this idea of significance, really making the most out of that. So that's really what we do all day long. And a lot of it, again, is around the value of their business and making sure early enough in the process that they're doing all of the things to optimize that. So, the thing I'd say is, look, go to our website, reach out, set up a call. We'd love to talk with you about what you have going on in your business, whether you need, an informal valuation just to start to get a sense for what's working, what might not be working in the business, or whether you're getting closer, like, hey, unfortunately we're only 6 months out. We have to sell. We may not have as much time, but what are the things we can do? We do have some things. We're pretty good at the lipstick. We got lots of good colors that we can slap on there and still make things happen and get it done. But whatever stage you're in, I'm sure there's value we can bring to the table just by having a conversation.
Sure. Appreciate that, Homer. Hey, we'll let you get back to serving your clients, having some of these same conversations, and we'll see you back here on the next one.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Really appreciate your time.
Of course. And hey, folks, we want to take a final moment and thank you guys for stopping by and being with us on the show today. As always, if you enjoyed today's discussion, you learned a thing or two, make sure you subscribe to the show on the platform that you did check us out on today. That way you don't miss out on other great conversations where Homer and we unpack these different wealth management discussions, some thoughts, considerations for business owners out there. A lot of really good stuff that we bring to you here on this show. And by subscribing, you won't miss out on any of it. So for Homer, I'm Ryan. We're going to go ahead and say so long now. But once again, we appreciate you stopping by and being with us on Advance Your Wealth.